What about NYC? What about NYC? Okay, if Mamdani doesn't win, we are all going to die. Okay? What do you want from with regard to NYC? You know what I believe. No voters in New York City are going to be. No, I think we all are going to be because I feel like Mamdani is, at least for the moment, the only chance we have to demonstrate that there is a genuine hunger for something better. If there's no hunger for anything better, why would anything change? You know, it's you need some kind of like centerpiece. You need like a demonstration of intent, of popularity. Unfortunately, I don't know. It's probably going to be a very close race. At least I hope so. Because if it's not a close race, I have a feeling it's going to be a very easy race for Cuomo. I doubt it's going to be a landslide for Mamdani. You cannot overestimate Mamdani's popularity just because he's all people talk about online. You know, unfortunately, the average voter here in America, and probably the average voter in general, is a dumb animal. You know, they're cattle, and they vote like it. They do. Cuomo did just spend another 20 million in ads right now. Yep. Yeah, that's why they shouldn't be able to vote, lol. I don't want to overstate the case here, but like I have to say, the past few years have really been testing my democratic beliefs, my general disposition towards the importance and value of democracy. It's very valuable in the abstract, but the relationship between democracy and capitalism is a rough one. You know, it almost feels like you can't actually. So this is a common socialist sentiment, right? You can't have democracy with capitalism because capitalism leads to such an inequitable distribution of resources that the people with the resources can simply buy the consent of the people beneath them through media or, you know, handouts, incentives, whatever else. And that is certainly true. But it also makes me wonder, like, to what extent in capitalism, what can you do to push against that, right? And I'm not talking about any like revolutionary LARP, you know, proletarian state vanguard, et cetera, et cetera. It's more like, dude, the disconnect between what is good for people and what they vote for is so insanely wide. Like, holy shit. Yeah, you have to drag people kicking and screaming. This is the frustrating thing, man, okay? It feels like if you're a fascist, you can just get people to happily walk to their own demise. But if you're a socialist or if you want anything good, you have to drag people kicking and screaming to the things that objectively benefit them. Damn. Are they worth fighting for? Of course. Being a retard doesn't mean that you don't deserve human rights. You're retarded. I might have been under a very specific set of circumstances that didn't even come close to happening. You, well, maybe it was easier from the start. It's not about whether or not they deserve it. It's just like, Jesus, you know? Like with Mamdani, you know, it's just such a, because the wonk argument against Mamdani is like, well, some of his policies are too over the top, they won't work. The average voter has no idea what anything is, what it means, what will or won't work. The average voter knows nothing except for name recognition and who's got the the shiny slogan. So many of the people who have endorsed Cuomo are people who originally denounced Cuomo after he resigned as governor. You know, it's an environment where the relationship between reality and outcome is so off, like so insanely, there's such a departure. It's like, Jesus. Is there any value in policy? Yeah, of course, you need to do policy. You know, you need to do things. It's not all, you know, aura and hype moments or whatever. I just, yeah, I don't know. I blame smartphones. Can it help if there's mandatory voting? Not really. I mean, I like mandatory voting in general, but that doesn't fix this problem, because if a person is stupid enough to not vote, like they weren't going to vote anyway unless they were kind of forced to, they're probably not smart enough to like necessarily vote for the right guy, right? Like, I like mandatory voting because it deals with the problem of disenfranchisement, you know? The Republican strategy of keeping millions and millions of people off the voter rolls or making it difficult for them to vote, it fixes that issue. It doesn't fix the issue that if a person is already not voting, they're probably not the sharpest tool in the shed. I mean, again, not to say Kamala was exactly offering the New Deal 2.0 or anything, but like this, it was a pretty obvious Pretty obvious election. You see this vid talking to NYC people about the mayoral race, kind of a black pill? Clickbait Wasteland. The channel is literally called Clickbait Wasteland. No, sure, fine. Yeah, we'll take a look. We'll take a look.
Hello, we are in Washington Square Park, and it is my first time being one of these
I would
cringy
hear.
people with a microphone in Washington Square Park. But we're asking people about the mayoral race and the Democratic primary, which will be taking place in June. Let's ask people who they're voting for and what issues matter to them.
Please
Which
do.
candidate are you supporting for the mayor's race?
I don't know. Cuomo is, I've heard a lot of good things about him, and he's like, he's supported like same-sex marriage, and I don't know. The other Zoran guy also seems like good, but I'm undecisive yet. Yeah, I don't know.
Thank you, American voter.
What is the most important issue to you living in the city?
I don't know, maybe transportation and like safety and freedom. Like we want to be able to protest and all of that, and like be able to speak, and we don't want like NYPD get in and like not letting us do that. That the city is clean.
Are you talking about any specific protests?
Oh, Palestinian protests. Yeah.
Okay, so then what
So-
what do you want?
I care about transportation and the right to protest against Israel's brutality, which is why I'm undecided between Cuomo and Mamdani. Incredible stuff, really. And again, it's not, listen, okay, so obviously this guy's an idiot, but it's not like an innate property of his mind. I just hope people understand. When I think a person has a like low IQ, you'll know it. I'll say so, okay? This guy is an idiot because of his information environment, you know? But like, damn, what an information environment, huh? That is like, it's pretty crazy. And this guy has plenty of free time. He could easily, in 5 minutes, he could learn everything he needs to about this mayoral race, but he doesn't want to. Millions of Americans just don't.
Well, they're cracking down, and like, I mean, now it's not bad, but I've heard that Cuomo is like pro-Israeli, so you know, not pro-Israeli, pro like he want to defend Netanyahu, which is, you know, a war criminal.
Like Jesus. No, this is not information environment. This is just a lack of interest. Yeah, I guess to an extent that's true. Yeah, for sure. I really do think it's a comfort thing, you know? There are like millions and millions and millions of Americans who care about some things, but they don't care about the relationship about the things they care about and policy. You know what I mean? Like there's some kind of like mental block where, okay, I think this guy's being genuine. I think he cares about the pro-Palestinian protests, right? I don't know why he would say this otherwise. But he doesn't care about them in a way that would lead him to look up, you know, which NYC mayoral candidate is the best on this issue. And that's a big deal because there were some very, 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 very public NYPD crackdowns on pro-Palestinian protests in New York City. That's, you know, that's up to the mayor. Like, this is very directly related. This is not abstract. This is not like, well, maybe in years there will be some knock-on effect. This is direct. But despite caring, sincerely caring about this issue, it's never occurred to him to go, well, maybe I should like look up how that relates to the upcoming mayoral election. People just, they're kind of like, in a political context, they're like lumpenproll. They're sleepwalking through their lives, just blissfully unaware. Because he doesn't care? Well, I think he cares about the protests. I don't think he cares in a way that reflects in his voting habits. And I bet you guys are like this in a lot of ways about a lot of things, where you care about something, sincerely you care. How many of you have a friend who you like, but you take forever to respond to their messages? And it's not because you don't like your friend, you love your friend. But instead, it's because when you get the message, you're always busy, or you have a headache and you think you're going to respond poorly, or like you don't want to come across as short, so you like wait a bit, and then it's 2 days later, and every time you're like, God damn it, why don't I message them sooner next time? But you don't. I found every smart person in my life has a common trait, extreme curiosity. Yeah, no, for sure. That's probably the #1 green light for being smart in a way that's actually useful, which is that if you realize there's a gap in your knowledge, you're like, oh, well, I can fix that. Let me learn about the thing. That's like a very good habit to develop, you know? Anytime you're like, well, does X, Y, you know, Z or whatever, and then you can just like, oh, yeah, well, now I know. You can learn a shocking amount about the world and everything in it just by kind of having that like blanket policy. And I'm not suggesting I'm perfect about that at all, okay? But I think I personally think I'm better about it than most. I have some friends who have that reflex. They'll just like look something up on the fly, you know, like anytime they don't know something. I think it's very respectable. Take advantage of the fact that you have the internet in your pocket, right? I mean, it's pretty cool, theoretically.
So, I don't know. It's kind of hard to decide, but I'm taking all of that into like consideration.
Are there any candidates that you've heard of that you're thinking of supporting?
Cuomo,
Cuomo, why is that?
because he's the only guy I know.
All right. What issues matter to
Well, that was straightforward.
you the most as a New Yorker?
Damn, I don't know, because there's a lot of cheat codes around everything. So me, I'm in a good position, so I can't talk for everybody else, you know. So just let's go Cuomo.
All right.
Okay. Interesting.
Thank you. And are there any candidates that you have your eyes on for the mayor's race who you're thinking of supporting?
Menswear guy. I see you. I see your ass. I see your ass. Menswear guy.
Zohar. That's Zohar Mamdani at.
And why do you support him?
People like me should be taxed more, and it's extremely hard to live in this city if you're working class. I grew up working class, and
And shockingly, the person who supports Mamdani first is the only person so far to have a coherent political worldview.
we need to get better at sharing.
And what issues matter to you the most as a New Yorker? You kind of mentioned some of them, but
More housing, especially public housing. More a stronger social safety net, like childcare, universal childcare, and generally trying to break the Democratic machine in New York City politics, which
Based.
tends to run more conservative and is rife with corruption.
will you be ranking other candidates under Zoran's name?
Absolutely. So Brad Lander and others who are competent and generally have good instincts as well.
This guy is college-educated white women. That's true.
Anyone but Andrew Cuomo. I just like don't understand what's. I find the hypocrisy of
Vosh, Adorno and Horkheimer were 100% vindicated when they critiqued the cultural industry that Americans are uniquely cut to the system because they very easily accept that art is a business. They were the first theorists on slop art. I think there's some legitimacy to that for sure. I think that Americans are uniquely complacent. I think that if in the realm of politics, Americans are uniquely and shockingly complacent. I think that in order to match American levels of political apathy and complacency in other countries, you often have to go to countries where voting actually doesn't matter that much. You have to go to countries that are so hopelessly corrupt that there really isn't that much of an effect to voting. Now, we are right now kind of in that spot, but I'm talking about a broader pattern, you know? And also, there is still a significant difference between somebody like Kamala Harris and somebody like Trump, you know? As bad as the system is, there's obviously a difference between those two candidates winning, which we're seeing playing out right now. And despite that, yeah, no, American political apathy is remarkable.
people who vote for Donald Trump, who abhor Donald Trump, but look at Andrew Cuomo and aren't bothered by his behavior, nauseating, especially when there's no cost in New York City. You're going to get a Democrat one way or another. So,
Who are you supporting in the mayor's race?
Haven't done my research, but probably.
How have you not done your research when your hat looks like that?
Zoran.
All right, I won't criticize you.
Can you tell me why you're supporting Zoran?
It just feels like right now there's kind of like a certain kind of politics that's the old way of doing it, and then there's a newer way of doing it that hasn't even been tried yet. And people my age especially, I feel like, are kind of waiting someone who's a little bit closer to our age to step up and say something, and he seems to kind of fit the bill. Everyone else is just caught up in the old way of doing things.
Not super coherent, but I get where he's coming from.
We gotta try something different, I guess.
What are your top issues as a New Yorker?
I don't think I'm an issue person. It's more of a, number one, will this person make things worse? Not many people clear that bar. If they can clear that bar, then it's sort of like, can I trust this person?
He does have the hat of a vibes person. Vosh, opinion on tote bags. What do you use to carry stuff while going around? Well, I'm in Seattle, so usually I just wear a jacket. Tote bags are elite, though. Tote bags and crossbody bags are like high tier, you know? Especially during the summer. Like, if you're just wearing a t-shirt or like a camp collar shirt or something, like, and you want to carry stuff around, you know? Just don't be one of those guys where you stuff all your daily carry shit into your pockets, you know? You're wearing like a skinny t-shirt and skinny jeans, or sorry, slim, because you hate skinny jeans, but all your shit is slim. And then you got your phone in your front right, you've got your pocket in your fucking back right, you've got your keys and whatever in your front left, and you've got all this shit bulging right around your hip bone, you know? It's not flattering. Bring a goddamn tote bag. Be an adult.
And then maybe we can go down the issues pipeline. But if you're just voting on issues, you're kind of saying, hey, I'm going to trust that I don't even know if I trust this person, but I'm going to pretend that I trust that they're going to go the way I want to on something that like could be so far down the road. You don't know.
What are some of the ways you think that Zoran has created trust for you as a voter?
Here, I want to see this a very small, very short video. Clickbait Wasteland. I respect what you're doing. Asking New York. Oh, hold on. The channel was created for this purpose, it seems. Hold your horses. There's only 3. Asking New Yorkers who they support. Wait. Okay, here we are in Harlem.
I'm in Harlem asking people about who they're supporting in the 2025 mayoral race here in New York City. Let's see what people think.
My name is Adri.
How do you spell that?
A-D-R-I.
And how long have you lived in New York City?
I've lived in New York City for about 40 years.
Wow, okay. So you're just telling me that you're thinking of sitting out this election. Can you tell me a bit more about why?
Because there's little or no progress happening in the city. Houses aren't, apartments aren't affordable. And these are like slave jobs around here. I feel like New York is like a factory for to turn people into workers. And the type of money that the average person gets is to pay their rent and keep their phone on so the job can keep calling. You know, so...
and that's why I have no opinion on whether Mamdani or Cuomo should win the mayorship.
In my opinion, the real issues have not been addressed. As far as affordable housing, as far as livable wages, those things have not been successful. So, in my opinion, I'm fed up. I'm fed up, you know, and I voted before and nothing ever came from it. So, yeah, if you want my vote.
This is what I see often with the anti-electoral left, where there's a deep apathy masquerading as political rebellion, you know? Like, obviously, this guy is lying. He might not know it, but he doesn't care enough about these issues to investigate the 2 candidates. If these are the things he cares about, he would answer Mamdani. That's obvious. Like, he might believe that what he's doing is like principled rejection of the system. In reality, he just doesn't care enough to look into it. And we all do that. It's called rationalizing, right? If you don't care enough about something, you come up with a reason, right? You know, well, why am I not voting? Well, it's because I'm fed up with the system, man. You know, but obviously it's cope. And this is part of the complacency, right? Because in my opinion, it actually takes, like, in a way, a lot of privilege and a lot of comfort to suffer from real issues, but to not care enough about fixing them that you even do like a cursory Google search. You know what I mean? Like like I'm not saying that this guy's privileged in a broader socioeconomic sense, but I think that there's and this is part of the Americanism of the problem, right? America is a very comfortable country. There's a lot of wealth, there's a lot of safety here. You know, even for our poorer citizens, there's a degree of not just material comfort, right? But presumed comfort. The idea that things are stagnant, things can't really change, so why worry about them too much? You understand what I mean? It's not a rational position. It's very self-defeating.
Vote, you got to do something.
Have you heard anything about any of the candidates, and are there any proposals that they have that sound sort of enticing, or not really so far?
Well, not really. They all say the same thing. It's just
See, he hasn't looked up. Cuomo and Mamdani, basically the same positions on these issues. He hasn't looked it up, but he's like posturing because he understands that it would be embarrassing for him to say, well, I'm not going to vote because I don't care, because then it would be really easy to grill him on why he should care.
to me, it's a bunch of rap. You know what I mean? It comes back from the Middle Ages, a chicken in every pot. You know what I mean? It's the same.
I don't
rap,
know what you mean.
That these politicians put out there for.
You understand what I mean about the democracy angle, right? Like, mandatory voting wouldn't fix this. Mandatory voting would probably just incline him at best to do a protest vote. Maybe Cuomo for name recognition. You understand what I'm talking about? Like, this is a deeper issue. And you can argue that it's due to complacency and nihilism. You can argue that it's due to like a misinformation environment. But I think I agree with that chatter earlier who corrected me. I don't think it's necessarily the information environment. I think it's the American complacency.
Centuries. And when somebody keeps going to depend on somebody to deliver, and they never deliver, it just breaks the morale of the voter, and they go, forget it. I'm not even going to be involved in it. This is just, another ring around the rosy thing that people are doing. And it's just very frustrating.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Not.
I'm going to disagree with that. My country's way poorer than most developed countries, and people act like this too because they're too busy trying not to die by being poor. They work and keep working. I would be interested in that because I feel like I might contest you on this a little bit. I feel like that might be better explained by an information environment, I don't know what country you're referring to, but I feel like if I went to a relatively poor country like Venezuela or Chile or something, you would either see a degree of apathy that better matches the corruption and ineptitude of the government, or you would see an information environment that's a lot more polluted. I don't know. I've only ever lived in America. I mean, I've visited other countries, but I've only ever lived in America. It's just insane to me, the idea of confidently speaking on these issues without even like looking into them a little bit. But I guess everyone does that on stuff sometimes. I don't know.
Not really. I think I speak for a lot of people out here, who are struggling to make ends meet. And it's just very frustrating because it's not just not having money. You don't have any money, then your family doesn't like you. And then there's the stress between either your kids or your wife or whoever you stay with. And that causes a ripple effect of destroying a family pretty much. If a man can't provide for his family, that causes major problems at home.
Awesome. One more question. There's a candidate named Zohran Mamdani who's proposing to freeze the rent for people who have rent
This is interesting. I didn't think she would do this. Okay, hold on.
stabilized apartments. What do you think of that proposal?
I think that's a great proposal. It sounds good. You know what I mean? It sounds good to me. That's what I tell you.
Okay. Well, there's your low information voter right there, I guess, just
These politicians, I want to freeze the rent. Sounds good. But can you make it happen? Because, in my research, the Democrats are actually paid to lose.
Interesting. Okay. So this is the New York City mayoral race. So a Democrat will win no matter what. Now, broadly, okay, this is complicated. Interestingly, this plays back into what I said about the anti-electoral lefties. Remember, okay, you know how even though I hate the Democrats quite a bit, I've always been pretty argumentative against this particular kind of like anti-electoral apathy because I don't think it actually produces anything good. This guy clearly isn't informed on the issues. What he does know, and he's correct on this, is that the Democrats are deliberately incompetent. They lie to their voters. They hamstring themselves. They're ineffectual to a point, right? The difference being, of course, that Cuomo is that to a T, and Mamdani is very obviously not that kind of guy. So even though you would think this information would motivate him to vote for Mamdani, it's done the opposite. It's actually driven him to a state of apathy where he isn't even aware of the possibility for change. It's almost like by being aware of the concept of class consciousness, you shove yourself into the lumpenpro position because you're like, well, yeah, I've been promised a lot and it's not come true. So like, maybe it is just, it is the way it is, you know? Vroom. Very interesting.
What they do is they get up in the office, and then the people ask, "What about this rent that you said you're going to freeze?" And then they go, "Oh, we didn't get enough votes." So always an excuse. "Oh, we couldn't do it. It was this person's fault, that person's fault." They never really deliver, because if a politician was able to deliver, they would get the votes over and over again, and they would stay in office. And when people can see the
not necessarily. In fairness to him, NYC previously had a progressive mayor, Bill de Blasio, that didn't really accomplish much. Part of that was Cuomo's fault, but it soured progressivism to a lot of New Yorkers. Here's an interesting question. Why is it that when a progressive candidate promises things and doesn't deliver, it sours people on progressivism, but when Republicans promise good things and never do them, ever, at any point, ever, for anyone, that doesn't sour people on conservatism? It's odd, right? Why is it that with progressives people can be like built up and let down? With conservatives, it's like it literally doesn't matter because only bad things are allowed to happen. Yeah.
difference in the kitchen table, it's going to entice them to get involved in the voting process, which is the right to vote. So that's how you do it.
Because they're promising improvement and hope. Conservatives do too, you know that, right? Like conservatives also campaign on arguments about making the country better. It's not like conservatives admit they want to make the country worse.
But, you know, in my opinion, you give one of these politicians enough money to look the other way and they'll take it. You know, how do you go into an office making maybe $80,000 a year and coming out a millionaire? That's because there are things that are being done and not supposed to be done. So
see, in my opinion, the issue, it's like he's not stupid. Well, okay, he's stupid like politically, but the issue here isn't that he has bad political instincts. It's an apathy response, you know? It's dulled his mind on these issues, like in a very specific way. It's very interesting. This, by the way, is the real beast. Okay, this is the real like mark of the beast 666 shit. Okay, this, what we're looking at, is the real enemy to overcome. It's this weird, semi-informed, Dunning-Kruger-esque rationalized apathy. Our mandate in the future will not be built on conservatives going, oh, I guess my axioms were incorrect. I'll adjust my priors and move over to the left. It'll be on creating a narrative that gets even people like this to fall in line. And I do mean fall in line because I think that he, in a way, is a political enemy, right? He's an enemy to our interest. Not that he's a bad guy, but this apathy that's taken him to this point where he's clearly like not familiar with Cuomo versus Mamdani, you know, that, right, it makes him a useful idiot for like for an enemy force, I guess, a deliberately crafted enemy force, right? Voter apathy is a product that is designed and sold, just like anything else. It's something that people work to build. Sometimes it's beneficial, mostly for Republicans.
You know, the money that these politicians are getting are actually controlling what they do. You know, and I'm a school teacher, and I told the kids, and I was just like,
interesting.
If you don't understand what an adult is doing and it doesn't make sense, they're getting paid.
So you mentioned are you a New York City public school teacher?
Yes.
Can you tell me about what are some policies you would like to see in education that you think would improve your classroom and your school?
Oh, okay. Policies in the classroom, a bigger budget to take kids on class trips to expose them to things. I would include a little bit more responsibility on the parents, because the parents are going. The parents are, have lives of their own that are out of control. You know what I mean? And when I see a parent show up to pick up their kid with purple hair and Cookie Monster pajamas on, I already know that there's no structure and order. And for example, we had a get together for the end of the year with the parents. There's so many single moms there, not enough dads, and that's a big problem.
It's very interesting. God, fuck this. Listen. And I'm sorry if it makes for worse content. I'm sorry if people aren't interested in this sort of stuff. This, watching and responding to this, is 50 billion times more important than like Epic conservative owned, okay? Look, I like dunking on the Trump supporters as much as anyone. I'm not going to pretend that I don't. But this is the real fucking... This is the nature of the dynamic. This is where we keep losing over and over again.
Problem. And then when they live a terrible home life, the teachers have to come in and deal with it. So it's like, I gotta teach them how to have social skills. I gotta teach them that they can't curse all the time. They teach them that they can't do this. And then after I break through all those layers, now I can go, see, young man, the plant gets energy from the sun. So that's a good question.
Thank you so much.
I mean, he's right. Yeah, well, he is. I think that he's gesturing at a real issue here, which is that the public education system is kind of like powerless to teach kids important things when there are all these like ground level issues that disincentivize kids from learning, that make it difficult for them to connect to their learning environment. Like that's completely true. I think he's right on that one. It's not just a curriculum thing, and I don't think that his positions here are animated by bigotry. I mean, maybe they are, but I don't think so. I think that's uncharitable. He's right, but the reality about the reality, but wrong about the causes. It's poverty, not single moms. Sure, of course it is. But a lot of people don't. Again, you have to understand this, okay? What you're describing is called the sociological imagination. You see a problem. There are a lot of single women who can't take care of their kids very well. And then the sociological imagination is daring to ask why, right? Not to rely on cheap and easy answers like, well, I guess they got divorced. Obviously, that's essentially like tautological. But rather to ask what conditions caused an increase in the number of single mothers, right? Why is it more prominent in the Black community, for example, than it is in the white community? Why is it more common in poor neighborhoods than in wealthy neighborhoods? And when you ask these questions and start peeling it back, you get at these like broader policy issues, these like top level, demographic and economic issues. But that's collegiate stuff, right? I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying there are college courses for it, which means the average person is probably not going to develop. Look at all of the talk that I've done, all the conversations we've had about the relationship between America and Israel. Do you have any idea how much you have to know to be able to immunize yourself to neo-Nazi talking points about how Israel controls America? In an environment where seemingly every American politician is terrified to criticize Israel, any criticism of Israel of either politicians or citizens is met with weirdly disproportionate punishment. And we give them tons of free money and we do what they ask. In this environment, the argument for the Nazi is very, very simple. Their argument, it's basically laid out for them. But an argument that allows you to really understand why this is happening, one that isn't like an easy conspiracy, but a real difficult truth, is you got to know a lot,
Really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. What's your name?
Rakia,
How do you spell that?
Raquea.
And how long have you lived in New York?
All my life, I'm a Harlemite, born and raised.
Awesome. So you've lived here all your life. What are the top issues to you as a New Yorker?
Affordability, housing, clean neighborhoods, and education.
And so the Democratic primary is coming up for the mayor's race. It's June 24th. Do you have any thoughts? Ooh, sorry, it's loud. About who you're maybe thinking of supporting?
I am undecisive right now. I am just.
The right is winning because the left doesn't know how to speak to their audience. You don't start with a theory of poverty, you just simplify the issues. The problem, the uphill battle that needs to be fought on this one is that it is literally always easier to make arguments about people being personally good or bad than it is to make arguments about structural causes. It's one of the reasons I really support Mamdani being such a hater to Cuomo. It is legitimately better politics to focus a campaign on your landlord is evil, your former disgraced governor is evil, I'm gonna fix it, than it is to go with like a complicated and nuanced conversation about why things are the way they are and what he'll do will fix it. Unfortunately, the personal argument, the argument that everything comes down to people being good or bad, everything comes down to people being, you know, willing to do the work or not, it's just more effective than structural arguments. And that's just kind of how we're wired. Because day to day, you make judgments about people's personal behavior and abilities and kindness all the time. How many times does the average person think structurally day to day? You know, when you walk into a CVS and the CVS is dirty and everything's all locked up, most people don't immediately think, oh, you know, I'm upset at the dishonest Walgreens report that led to all of these companies locking their stuff up for no reason, heightening the fear of organized retail theft. Instead, most people are going to think, wow, that fucking sucks. These people don't trust me. They lock their stuff up. It's dirty. They don't care that it's clean. You start blaming the people who work there. Or you blame CVS as though it was a person. They're failing you, right? You don't look at the broader structural stuff. Maybe you do. You're very cool, but a lot of people don't. You get me.
Following suit and seeing who has a healthy record and who can deliver what they say. That's what is a priority to me. Yeah.
Between the top two candidates right now, Andrew Cuomo and Zohran Mamdani, do you have any thoughts? Are you leaning any way toward either of them?
I know Cuomo has a reputation. Definitely when we had COVID, he was one that advocated for transparency, and he definitely manage data pretty well. So based on that, he is somebody that I'm familiar with. I have to familiarize myself with the other candidate. But, you know, it's just...
Actually, obviously the information environment here is bad, but she's being quite honest. Her essentially saying, well, I know about Cuomo and I don't know about the other guy is a more honest answer than the rationalization provided by the previous guy. So I appreciate that.
Just, you know, basically prioritize what New Yorkers need, definitely the housing and education, and that person has my vote. I may keep it a secret, you know, for later who I'm voting for.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
New York just have, I would say politicians have some grace on New Yorkers. We are one of the most expensive cities in the world, and the salaries are not meeting the demands. So definitely if there can be some more checks and balances and available educational services for students with special needs, in which I advocate for. I'm an educator, and I believe in girl empowerment. Yes.
One more question about Andrew Cuomo. So some politicians are kind of raising Andrew Cuomo's record, especially regarding nursing homes and COVID, and alleging that he sort of covered up some of the COVID deaths. But you say he's very transparent. I was curious, what did you think about Andrew Cuomo's record during COVID?
Well, when I say the transparency, I'm thinking through the lens from what my recollection is. Just he gave us the numbers daily. He made the daily report. I'm not saying that there was full accuracy.
Shows how important showing up is, right? Like Cuomo lied egregiously. But he did hold like daily press conferences, you know, in a way, he was implementing a lot of what Trump is now in his second term, which is what matters is being visible. Mamdani understands this perfectly, too. The reason Cuomo isn't being more visible in this campaign is A, he already has essentially 100% name recognition, and B, he hates you and doesn't want to be here. Mamdani understands, you know, the old there's no such thing as bad press. Trump knows this. Mamdani, I think, to an extent knows this. It's not an entirely true saying, but the underlying truth, which is that you need to be in front of the cameras all the time, that's unassailable.
But we were in the know. And when we needed some more bed requests, when we needed a space for hospitalization, there was open dialogue about that. Again, there's always question for accuracy when it comes to the data, but at least you know what to ask. At least you know what to be curious about. So those things were just very relevant to myself, and I can memorize that even though we were facing trauma.
How long have you lived in New York?
All my life. Yeah, I was born here, born and raised in Harlem. As you can see, a lot has changed. So yeah.
What is the most...
Everyone in these fucking videos has a hat. Every New Yorker has a hat. I have a hat. I'm gonna wear my new hat. Okay?
important issue to you as a New
Let me
Yorker
tilt
living in
it
the
up.
city?
Get the curve.
I would say justice reform. As you know, there's a lot of incarceration going on. There's a lot of policies that they got to fix about that as well. And also housing, like rent is crazy. People are out on the streets.
Interesting. Basically, every single person who has been asked has the same answer with regard to what they care about. I think this is going to be true for most conservatives as well. In New York City, most of the people who are going to answer to this, they're going to be Democrats, you know? So it's not as though, like, you know, we are talking to Democrats here. But I think, like, if you got right down to it, ask Republicans, like, well, what worries you? What do you care about most? A lot of them are also going to talk about basic issues with affordability. A lot of them, though, are going to say shit like, well, the border and transgenders, which, you know.
People can afford a job. As you can see, President Trump has raised, like, taxes and tariffs. So that's an issue as well. So, yeah.
And have you been following the mayor's race at all? So we have Andrew Cuomo in the top spot. What are your thoughts on him?
I think he was the governor. He was all right until that issue happened. And I know his brother does the news as well on CNN, I believe.
Used to.
I don't know. It's a tough one. You know, like when you get allegations like that, it's tough to, you know, support you and be behind you. I don't know what his policies are. I don't know who the other candidates are as well, so I can't really speak too much about it. But
it's all name recognition. It's all name recognition.
I just know, like, when he was governor, things was okay in the city. But yeah, that's all I got right now.
Same reason that Trump wins big with the things were better 4 years ago crowd, even though when it was asked 4 years ago was at the beginning of COVID. People remember most of Trump's first presidency as the before COVID times. COVID was only present for a portion of the last year, you know? So for a lot of people just associate positivity with Cuomo in this case, because they think of Cuomo as like, oh yeah, he was that guy who was like doing daily press conferences, holding Trump to account, you know, like he was holding the country together. The actual specifics of the press conferences, I mean, those fade over time, you know, the fact that he was on TV every day, that stays.
Now.
How long have you lived in the city?
45 years or more.
All right, so you've seen it all.
Harlem, yes. I've seen this place go from crap to greatness. It's getting better and better. Yeah. I came in the 70s when the heroin addicts, the junkies were walking and falling in the street. It was awful. But listen, it's 2025. And we have you two standing.
Yeah, remember, we need Mamdani to win. Yeah, we're what, 6 days away? You motherfuckers need to go out there and phone bank.
Here, so it must have gotten a whole lot better. You feel safe?
So we're asking people about the New York City elections coming up for mayor.
By the way, somebody earlier said that my hat's a little bland because it doesn't have an insignia. I want to add one. You can sew a patch on. This is a hat made by a company that has a factory that only produces Japanese baseball caps. It's so cool. It's got a leather cowhide band along the inside so that it doesn't slip when your forehead gets sweaty from the athleticism. And the green on the underside of the brim means that you're not getting light reflecting off the turf of the grass, like into your eyes, you know, like you're not getting a sheen of it. The green on the, because it's already green. You know what I mean? thing Japan. True, but I can get a patch here. Wouldn't that be cool?
I was wondering if there are any candidates that you're leaning toward.
I'm not reading much. I'm not scrolling. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I'm like a bug in the rug doing nothing, happy. But listen, what I love is peace and protection.
Doesn't green specifically reflect green? Ain't that why it looks green? No, the idea is that the color of your brim isn't changing when you turn around. Like whether you're over green or the dirt or what, like the green isn't, it's just a massive green up here, so you're not getting the light reflecting. You can see what I mean. If you wear like a white brim hat and then you walk over grass, you can tell, like, you know what I mean? Like the color. Listen, I'm not like a huge baseball guy, okay? Listen, if the Japanese are doing it, there must be a reason.
And safety. So whomever it is, male or female, please keep it safe. Make it safe. Make it safer.
So would you say that crime and safety is kind of your top issue, or are there other things that are?
Of course. I'm in the over 60 group, so I want to be able to walk without feeling unsafe. And also for young people, teenagers, kids, young mothers, men get in trouble too, you know?
I've heard rumors of this.
Safety is for everyone. Okay.
Do you think rural Americans are worse than this politically? Yes, and this is empirically true. The average New Yorker runs circles around the average ruraloid on like every possible metric. Education, income, compassion, humanity, easily. The farther you are from the nearest Starbucks, the more you are Adolf Hitler. Did you know that Adolf Hitler at no point in his life was ever near a Starbucks? No wonder he turned out the way he did. The problem with the New Yorkers is not the sort of like concentrated malevolence present in rural America. Instead, it's this weird apathy, which is why so few of them turn out for their fucking primary elections.
So that's all it's about, safety. Y'all got something to say? You want?
What about the mayor's race?
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you and stay safe.
Thank you. What issues matter to you the most as a New Yorker?
The train station, really, like, we need better subways, like, it needs to be fixed. Too much, like, homeless people on it, too much, like, emergency problems going on, so, you know, just need to fix it up. That's really it. Because I'm paying $2.95 every day to go to the train station, so it's like, a week alone, I'm paying, like, $50 a week, so it's like, you know what I'm saying? So fix it up, New York. That's really it.
Are there any candidates in the mayor's race that you're leaning toward?
What about all the victims of crimes being left to bleed in the subway? Doesn't New York City have a lower per capita murder rate than basically any red state? Like, easily?
I don't really get that deep into it. You know, I'm just right there on the ledge of it, so, you know.
Awesome. What do you think about congestion pricing? You have any thoughts on that?
I think it's dumb because we already pay taxes and everything for like that, so it's like, why I need more money from us? So, like, you know, that's really it.
You driving a car around Lower Manhattan?
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.
Well, yeah, we're fucked in New York. What is it? Andrew Cuomo's running, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if he wins, then it's like a W for New York corruption. And I think the other guy, what is it?
Zohran Mamdani.
Zohran Mamdani. Shouts out to Bronx Science. Yeah, I don't know. There's too much bootlicking. I don't think I'm the right person to.
Huh. Do you think this apathy is a recent phenomenon, or have Americans always been like this? I think that what we're looking at here is relatively recent. I think this is relatively recent. I think this is very much like a neoliberal / neoconservative kind of dynamic. What's the name of the channel? Clickbait Wasteland? I like what they're doing, actually. I like what they're doing. Oh, fuck, right. There's one more. Oh, I'm tempted. It's already 3:30. Okay, we can watch a little of one more. And then I have to round it out. Oh, yeah, oh, sorry. Like, okay. channels like this basically exist for people to react to them. So I don't think that I'm necessarily stealing content. However, Clickbait Wasteland. All right, keep pumping out the bangers.
I'm on the Upper West Side asking people what they think about the upcoming mayoral election. The primaries are on June 24th, and early voting is starting soon. I'm trying to visit as many different neighborhoods as I can to get people's thoughts on this mayoral election. I'm not campaigning for a specific candidate. I'm just getting general vibe on what people are thinking as the race is heating up. Here's what they had to say. How long have you lived in New York?
For 3 years.
3 years. And who are you planning on voting for?
I'm planning on voting for Zoran.
Can you tell me why?
Yeah, I believe in...
I think we're going to see more Mamdani voters here, largely because this is a well-to-do, affluent area. The most likely person to vote for Cuomo is old, black, poor, and uneducated. Here in the Upper West Side, presumably, you know, we're seeing the opposite trend demographically in every direction. Really? Yes. Yeah, and women, for some reason, break more for Cuomo, which I don't understand. So literally, a rich white man with a college degree is actually the most likely demographic to support Mamdani, which is crazy. It does make a bit of sense, though.
He has a lot of principles that I really believe in. I like where he stands on freezing rent, making...
And how long have you lived in New York City?
30 years.
Wow, so you've seen it all.
I've seen some of it, the good and the bad, yes.
So do you have any candidates that you're leaning toward for the mayor's race?
Either the current mayor or maybe Cuomo, I guess, but that's about all I know.
Oh, never mind to my theory. So much for numbers crunching and the demographics.
At this point, I haven't really followed it that closely.
So would you be voting in the Democratic primary then?
The fact that he said current mayor, by the way, though, means this guy is definitely a low information voter. He probably named Cuomo only because he's seen headlines with his name mentioned that he's running in the race. Current mayor?
I'm registered as a Democrat, so I probably will vote in the Democratic primary, but I'm not quite sure who I would vote for between the two of them at this point.
Okay, so yeah, Eric Adams is not on the Democratic primary. Yeah, you got it. I'm curious, what did you think of Cuomo as governor? Is that kind of one of the reasons maybe you're leaning toward him, or is it familiarity?
I thought he did a good job. He seemed more down the center than many candidates that were either on the left or the right extreme.
Never mind. It might not just be low information voting. This guy might just be dumb.
He got wrapped up in the COVID situation, which didn't play well for him. And
Upper West Side has a lot of conservative Jewish people. Oh, true. That's also a factor, for sure. If he mentions Israel or like anti-Semitism, that'll be a dead ringer. That'll be a giveaway.
And he got some sexual abuse issues, which probably they all have some issues associated with, so that didn't play out well with him.
I don't think Mamdani has those, actually. I don't think we should accept that. I don't believe that's very cynical. Really? Look, I'll buy the idea that every politician, no matter how good they are, at some point has been kind of like a little corrupt. I understand that. I don't know about the sexual abuse accusation. Like, I don't think we should level the playing field there.
Either. So I'm open-minded to see what he has to say, and I think Adams has done a good job. So between the two, I'll probably pick one.
And what issues matter to you the most right now as a New Yorker?
Lower taxes, safety.
Okay, this guy might just be a conservative who registers as a Democrat so that he's relevant in the primaries in New York City.
Safety, clean streets, fixing some of the potholes.
Okay, yeah, literally. How are you in the Upper West Side being affected by potholes, motherfucker? Potholes on the what? MTA lines?
Simple things that they seem to have other priorities on, so just keeping it simple.
Do you plan to vote in the primary, or are you going to wait till the general, you think?
I don't know. I haven't really heard from either Cuomo in any of his debates at all, so I'll probably try and listen to what he has to say and make a decision between the two of them.
Cool. Thank you so much. And one more question. Sorry, I don't want to keep you too long. So Zoran Mamdani, he's in second place right now for the Democratic primary. I don't know if you've heard anything about him, but he almost a new poll came out. I don't know if it was internal polling.
The giveaway was when he said, I'm registered as a Democrat. Yeah, that's true. He did say that. He was asked if he's a Democrat and he said, I'm registered. Okay, yeah. So he's definitely just like a Republican.
Catching up. It seems he's very popular with young people, but you haven't heard. You haven't heard about him?
No, I'm old. What's his platform?
He's a self-described democratic socialist.
Right.
He doesn't shy away from the word socialist.
Right.
His big three things that he tells his supporters and people who canvass for him is that he wants free childcare, fast and free buses, and stabilized rent, or not rent freeze for stabilized apartments, but he just says rent freeze.
Somebody's got to pay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He's a Republican.
For his giveaway, so I guess it depends on who's paying the taxes to pay for his agenda. So I think you have to look at that and say, I'm not a landlord, but if you're a landlord in a building, how do you keep the building maintained if people aren't paying their fair share of rent and other people are paying 4 or 5 times the amount? I don't have answers to the questions. I just question who's going to pay for his programs. As a New Yorker, it's expensive to live here.
Incredible cognitive dissonance to simultaneously say you can't freeze rent because then how the fuck are landlords going to pay for the stuff they need to do, but also to argue for lower taxes on him.
So everybody has to pay something, and other people seem to pay less, others pay disproportionately more, so that's why they have elections, I guess.
Cool. Anything else you want to add, or that's
it? It's been great talking to you. Good luck.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Bye.
I'm Megan, by the way. What's your name?
My name's Joe Burke.
We're hat modem.
Nice to meet you. And how long have you lived in New York City?
Since 2019.
All right. And are you a Upper West Side resident?
I live on West 82nd Street.
All right. And who are you leaning toward for mayor?
Okay, hold on. He's wearing a synthetic polo. Heavy Republican coded outfit.
I would prefer not to vote for any one of the people that are running for mayor right now.
Okay.
I think Adams is doing an adequate job, but I would just say adequate. I think the other choices are no better in terms of the people that are coming in. And I would love to see somebody like Bloomberg come back, but that's
incredible. As always, the American capacity for I know it's
not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, man.
Great. And why are you dissatisfied with the choices?
I think they don't spend the money wisely. You have I think the 4th largest budget in the country, and yet we still always have to be raising our taxes, particularly in terms of the educational system.
Shocker, rich district is full of retarded jackasses that want no taxes. It really is like an age divide. And a lot of that might be because rich people who are young in New York City are... many of them are trust fund kids who are not paying taxes on their money anyway because they already have it. So for if you're wealthy and you're young, you're probably wealthy due to inherited wealth, and you might already have that wealth. So you're not as affected by, long-term tax. You're trying to maximize every cent in your bank account or whatever.
System, and then you constantly have understaffing in terms of the police and security forces.
Understaffing of the NYPD. Jesus Christ.
I don't understand how we are spending our money so inefficiently. I think the second part is in terms of just the messaging as to what they're trying to accomplish. The focus on safety and education doesn't seem to be there.
What do you think the candidate... So right now Cuomo is in the top spot, polling in the top spot. How do you feel about him and his message on, you said, safety and education?
I think it's difficult to vote for a person that has been pushed out of office for the actions that he committed previously. He may have great policies and be a very strong politician, but he was pushed out of office for harassing women in the office, and he resigned himself. So I have a tough time supporting someone like that.
Okay. Will you be voting in the Democratic primary, or are you going to wait it out, you think?
I am not going to vote in the Democratic primary. I'll vote in the election, but that is it, the November election.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. I don't know. Hard to read this guy. Hard to put him in a category. But that's everyone, right? From the top down, when you're looking down from on high, it's okay, well, people fit in these discrete categories where you can predict what they're going to believe based on the alignment of their positions that you already know and the axioms that they must have derived those positions from. And then in reality, it's no one It's just a fucking shit show, man.
You're welcome. Have a nice day.
How long have you lived in New York City?
My whole life, which is pretty long. You don't need to know exactly, but it's many decades.
All right.
To give you an idea, before I was even old enough to vote, I was a volunteer for the Lindsay for Mayor campaign, and that was 1965.
Okay, wow. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. That shit means nothing to me.
65.
So we're talking to a New York City expert here.
Well, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I've been around.
And what are your thoughts on this upcoming mayor's race?
Well, I love ranked choice voting. I'm so glad we have it. I think we should always have it for every election. And I consider myself a fairly progressive Democrat.
Okay.
I'm leaning, however, toward Andrew Cuomo.
Incredible.
Because I know there are issues, but I remember how setting up the Javits Center for COVID vaccine so quickly and so efficiently made a big difference to many of us so we could get our vaccines. And I think that's wonderful. You know, I do some work in London sometimes, and I'm impressed there at how efficiently capital projects and emergency projects get set up. And that doesn't happen here necessarily, but I think Cuomo is one person.
This is essentially just an incumbency argument, right? This is essentially just, well, I know Cuomo. Better the evil you know.
Who could make that happen, and he did with the Javits Center vaccine project.
Now, a lot of people, he's under investigation right now for his handling of COVID, specifically with nursing homes and the reporting of data. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, there are allegations at this point, but...
Well, I think that was a tragic situation. I think there wasn't enough known at the time to make the right decision, you know, but when I think of COVID and Cuomo, I think, as I said, of the Javits Center vaccine initiative and also of his daily appearances on television.
Yeah. Damn. For incumbency and exposure to be what wins this guy over when he's this old, that's crazy. He's politically informed enough that he cares about ranked choice voting. He was politically involved in the 60s. And even to a guy like this, it's still like, ultimately, it's still like a, well, I've seen Cuomo on TV, and so he's like the guy I know argument. That is remarkable.
Reassure us and tell us the latest data. My mother was a kid in the 40s, I guess, when there was a newspaper strike. And she said Mayor LaGuardia used to read the comics to kids on the radio so that they shouldn't be deprived. So that was her memory of a mayor coming through a crisis. But COVID.
That's really sweet, actually. That's really cute. I would have to read. So, like the mayor went on the radio to like read out like the comic strips. I guess it's a kind of strike breaking. I don't know.
COVID was more important crisis than reading the comics. And I think Cuomo, despite the nursing home situation, did a really good job.
And so have you read about the other candidates? You said you liked ranked choice voting. Will you be ranking anyone else on your ballot?
Yeah, I haven't fully decided that. One thing the most important thing is that if there is a terrible crisis, we need someone who could handle it. That was an issue in Los Angeles when they had the fires and the mayor was out at a coronation in Ghana or something. She didn't know that in advance. But still, it just does show that you need someone maybe who doesn't agree with you about every single issue or who has some skeletons that are out of the closet, but someone who could really be depended on in a crisis. And so, yeah, I will. I'll probably put Stringer in there just for old time's sake, because he's a nice man and he's been a good public servant. Haven't decided on the others yet, actually.
So you mentioned it's important to have someone who's present in the city. It was interesting during the debates that they held between the candidates. One of the first questions.
I wonder how authentic this guy's convictions are. Because he wants people who are present, okay? Who's present? Mamdani. Mamdani is all over the fucking city right now. For all we know, he could be behind that building over there. He's all over the place. Cuomo gets chauffeured around. His fucking car has a mountain of traffic violation tickets that are left unpaid. You know, he doesn't campaign. He's not here at all, right? He got tapped in. I wonder how authentic this guy's convictions are. If he was really following this mayoral race, would he support Mamdani for the reasons he claims he supports Cuomo now? Would he say, oh, of course I support Mamdani. I care about a mayor who's going to be here for New York City, who's going to show they care, and Mamdani's here, you know? Or would he find another reason to support Cuomo? This is the shit that gets me. The difference between people's stated and actual positions and how aware they are of the gap. Because often they're not. I don't know.
Was, will you be making a trip to Israel specifically during your time as mayor? Zohran Mamdani was the only one who said, no, I'm going to stay here. Other candidates said, yes, I will be traveling to Israel.
Really like this interviewer, by the way.
Do you have any thoughts on that? It's okay if you don't have thoughts on it.
Well, I think too much is made of the figurehead position. I think there's a lot of work to do here, and it doesn't matter how one feels about countries that one goes to just for a photo op. You can know these days with media, you can know what's going on without traveling there. So no, I'm definitely not for Mamdani, or is that his name? But I don't think the others have to go to Israel.
It sounds like he knows who Mamdani is. That was an odd answer. It sounds like he knows who Mamdani is. I don't want to jump to racism. Come on. He said the name with a bit of contempt. I don't know if it's a race thing. But he definitely knows who Mamdani is.
So what's your name?
Elise.
Elise, how long have you lived in the city?
I'm from New York. I'm at college out of New York right now, but I grew up here, and I'm 20, so.
Well, did you grow up on the Upper West Side?
Yeah, I grew up by Columbia, and my grandparents live right here.
Nice. So what are your thoughts on the mayor's race so far?
Well, I have a couple. I ought to.
I'm skipping this because there was literally no possibility that anyone who looks like this wouldn't be voting for Mamdani. Sorry, but yeah, this MF do indeed have pronouns. Let's hear it. Okay.
Know more about it because I am involved with political organizing. But
I know.
Being at college out of the city hasn't helped with that, although I should know more about it. But I am disappointed in the actions of the current mayor, Eric Adams, and I don't think there would be an end to corruption with Cuomo, who's leading in the polls. So
are there other candidates that you're interested in?
Yeah, I'm interested in Zohran Mamdani.
I know.
Because he's a leftist, and he's raised an impressive amount of money. But sort of the results of the presidential election, I don't really trust polls anymore.
Oh shit! Not just a Mamdani fan, but a Vosh viewer.
Speculation prior to the actual election day, and I don't know how much. Although I hope, I don't know how much faith I have in our city electing someone who doesn't come from a political family like the Cuomos, or doesn't have a ton of super PACs backing them. Also, just the name Cuomo, I feel like someone can get into a ballot box and might not be educated on the election, I'm sort of not that educated, and just be oh, I recognize that name, I'm gonna vote for him.
So you mentioned that you're going to school right now outside of the city. So how did you hear about Zohran and kind of get involved in the race so far?
I do a lot of political organizing, when I'm not at school, on issues like Israel-Palestine and other issues. So I'm sort of in those social circles, and my brother is a big Zohran supporter and has campaigned for him, and I'm gonna do some phone banking and maybe some canvassing, so yeah.
Does it matter to you what the mayor's position is on Israel-Palestine issues?
I think it does, yeah. It's complicated. I'm a Jewish person, and I also think Palestinians ought to live in peace and dignity and have self-determination. So, New York has one of the largest Jewish populations outside of Israel, because the United States has something like 50% of the world Jewish population is in the United States, and the other 50%, roughly, there's people that are Jewish that don't live in either country, are in Israel, and a lot of those Jewish communities are in New York City. So, yeah.
Dude, look at how light the traffic is. Upper West Side isn't affected by the congestion pricing, right? Upper West Side is above the cutoff.
Curious to see how our thinking as a Jewish community changes on Israel-Palestine over time, and if it will.
Have you been involved in any, also you don't have to answer this, I can cut this out, New York City protests, and what do you think about the city's response to the protests so far?
Yeah, I was just at an anti-ICE protest yesterday, and that was super cool. I went to a trans rights protest when I was in the city over my spring break, and that was cool as well. I had to leave
Here. We're almost at the end, but I gotta fucking read the donos. I hope nobody takes my blasé tone to be a negative thing. It's lovely. I think a city is the more MFs you see who clearly have pronouns in a city, the more civilized that city is. You know? And that applies universally, because I guarantee you that you can go to like Istanbul or whatever, or Beijing, and you go downtown and you see MFs with pronouns. Okay, like it absolutely correlates to the amount of civilization you've got going on over there. Important to keep in mind. I wish we had people like them in Sweden. I guarantee you there are Swedes with pronouns.